Namaste and hello everyone. My name is Shavika and welcome to another episode on Careers Beyond Degree. As someone who started her UK journey as an international student and also started applying for jobs once I graduated, despite not having the graduate route in 2017, and also someone who spent a lot of time in the UK, I often get asked the question, how do I apply for jobs? How do I land a sponsored role? How should I fix my CV? And are there sponsored roles really available today? And are employers really willing to hire and the works? So, this podcast today answers all these questions from someone who's gotten a sponsored role, has applied to 1500 plus jobs, has also faced a lot of rejections and still come through. So if you're somebody who's been struggling to find a job and struggling to land a role, and you've been looking for a sponsored role and you've been finding it very hard facing all those rejections, then you should definitely stay tuned and keep watching it till the end, because this person will be answering all your questions about applying for jobs and getting that and landing that sponsored role. So stay tuned and keep watching. Hi, Hardil. Thank you so much for coming to Careers Beyond Degree. I am really excited about this podcast because I know I speak to so many students and professionals who ask me all these questions, which I'm kind of aware that you will be able to answer. So I'm really looking forward to this. But before we get into the conversation, I'd love for you to please introduce yourself.
Brilliant. Thank you, Shivika, first of all, for the invite. Yes, I'll go through a little bit about my journey in the UK. So I'm Hardil, and I come originally from Mumbai in India, and I have spent most of my life there. It's only been the last 4 years that I've moved to the UK to pursue my master's degree in management. So I come from a technical engineering background. I've had a little bit of a work experience back in Mumbai for a small startup, again within the textile engineering field. So that is what my background was, and I wanted to do something within management, which is why I came to the UK in 2021. That was pretty much the COVID year. So I started my course in 2020. However, for the first 6 months of my degree, I couldn't even come to the UK because of restrictions, etc. I came to the UK, studied my master's, landed an internship initially within consulting, and I've had experiences since then in the last 4 years within consulting, then into procurement consulting specifically, and then within procurement for a specific department within a company right now. So that has been all of my experiences till date. And as an international student, there have been challenges, there have been things that we'll be speaking about today. Yeah, so true to the podcast. What's the careers beyond the degree?
Wonderful. I moved as an international student as well back in 2016, and there was no COVID, no post COVID, no pre COVID. Do you think joining university after COVID kind of impacted your overall experience in any way?
I think yes and no. Yes, because for the first 6 months, like I said, I was not even in the country that I was supposed to be in, and I actually thought at some point of time that I might not even see the university and graduate without even stepping foot into the university campus. So yes, it did impact a lot. However, for me, maybe I was lucky enough. My course, when it transitioned online, there was so much of support. It Of course, there was a difference between meeting people, networking in person, but I think the transition to online learning was tremendous, and I think that gave me a lot of skills. I mean, we shifted suddenly from an offline world to an online world, so I gained a lot of skills around how do you reach out to people, how do you message, how do you come across as a candidate who's interested in a certain field. And I think yes, that way I was lucky enough. But when I say on the flip side, I would say there were things around not me being able to go to things like career fairs, or everything was getting online. So it was quite new. So there were some teething problems everywhere, including recruitment. A lot of companies also froze their hiring processes, so it was difficult. There was already limited opportunities. So that was a downside of it. However, in terms of university careers, career support, and the learning experience, I think I've had a mix of both, and I'm pretty happy with what came out of it. So, yeah, there are two sides to it.
And you mentioned in the beginning that you had a part-time role that you were doing back in your city. What was that about? What were you doing in that role?
So the part-time role that I landed uh, was actually in London itself, with a very big IT services firm, and the role that I was doing was around retail consulting. So I would look at majority of the retailers in the UK, do market research on them, things like SWOT analysis, or maybe a certain project on a specific niche. At that point, it was all about RFIDs, and how inventory management and inventory control was happening through beacons and RFIDs. So that was one of the projects that I sort of did initially to get my foot into the door. So that was my internship with my first firm, and I did that partially in India because I landed that role at that time, and then partially when I came to the UK, I did get to do it in person as well. So yeah.
Did it have an impact when you came here? The experience that you already had, and when you moved here and started working?
I think yes. When you are doing it all offline, right? You kind of have a lot of support. Like you can, if you have a question, you can just go to somebody and ask a question, learn from what they're doing every day. So definitely there is a lot of difference when you go into the office and meet with people, because it's not just not likely your manager that you're speaking with or your team. There are multiple sets of other teams working in parallel that you have the chance to meet with, network, understand how the company works overall, not just maybe your department. So there's definitely a lot of cross department collaborations that happen. And one, like, yeah, actually, my second project was sort of a cross department collab, that because I was now going to the office, I was meeting people, I was understanding what they were sort of doing. I also got interested, and we had a cross departmental project done like that for a non-profit client. So that were the perks of doing it while while uh, while in person and coming to London. When I was online, I had more like self learning is what I kind of had experience, like built my experience in, and it was more to do with research and then presenting it to the team. So that way, again, it was a nice way for me to start initially working. And I would say the working online was going to become the norm in the future as well, looking at how things were. So definitely a nice experience to have.
Amazing. You mentioned consulting. For someone who's never done consulting or wants to get into consulting, tell us what is consulting? How does one start a career in consulting?
A very interesting question. I didn't know about consulting myself before I came. No, not even before I came. Like before I started university, my master's program. So I figured out, what is it that I want to do, and I was not very sure of going into a uh, certain like career role, or a sector or an industry. What essentially consulting does is you are a third party. You are advising a client, so you are a third point of view for a certain client, and he has a problem, and that is why he's come to you. So uh, let's say there's a business who's trying to expand into a certain, let's say, country or a region, and they don't have specific ground knowledge about it. What you would do as a consultant would be that you would go to and try and understand what the business is about and what are they trying to achieve. If you've got ground knowledge of that particular region, then you can advise the client that these are the steps that you should be taking. These are likely risks that can happen. So you're essentially a third party view of a problem, and you're trying to solve that problem through data, through research. You can also carry out workshops with all the stakeholders that are involved. So stakeholders meaning there could be departments within the that company itself, like let's say there's an accounting, there's a finance department, there is several other departments, operations, etc. So you will have each department's point of view on what their goals is, and using that information you can then advise the client saying these are what everybody's goals are, and this is what the overall goal of the companies, and this is what you should be doing based on the location that you're expanding to. So this is a very very basic example of what you would be doing. uh, for for somebody who wants to get into consulting, I think primarily the most important thing is, uh, first of all, to understand the types. First of all, to understand that consulting is very varied. Like you could be working with a healthcare client one day, and the next day I was sort of working with an aviation client, and they're absolutely different industries. uh, Typical projects obviously depend on the type of client that you've got, but I usually had 3 to 6 month projects that I would do, and then I would either I would do multiple at a time, or I would then shift like from one to the other. If one of them was a really large one, that would take most of my time. So that is what it varies. So if you're wanting to get into consulting, what you should know is that it's going to be very fast paced. A lot of things you'll be learning on the go. So it's a very very fast learning curve that you'll have. You will use a lot of data. So primarily you should be very very good with Excel and presenting the data at the end, which would mean that PowerPoint is something that you should be learning if you've not done that yet. Uh, so yeah, Excel and PowerPoint likely the most important tools. You can do visualization. So you could either do that in Excel using dashboards, or you could do that using a separate tool like Tableau or Power BI. But anybody who wants to get into consulting, like the first thing that I would really recommend is try watching what consulting usually involves. There are a lot of YouTube videos. If you have if you just Google what a consulting case looks like. So usually what you will benefit from is case studies. uh, you can practice these case studies either on online platforms, or you could just meet up with a friend and then act as the interviewer versus you as the applicant, and then you could reverse roles. But yes, try and do as many cases as possible, because that's what's going to get you, and that's going to likely be one of the stages of the interview as well. There could be multiple case rounds, but usually there's definitely going to be one case study round for sure. So yeah, that's where you would begin.
Oh, that's a good tip to go through something like that on YouTube and get an idea of it once if you're thinking to start a career in consulting. But something I'd also like to know from you is there a certain type are there certain types of people who can become consultants? Like, do you need to have certain skill set to become a consultant according to you?
So I would say in order to become a consultant, I think first of all you'll have to be very analytical. You need to be able to deal with numbers, understand numbers, present them back, uh, which makes it. Which, I mean, the second point is you have to have a lot of problem solving skills. So you see a problem, you should come up with ways to solve it. They're usually I mean, the client is usually hiring you for a certain problem that it has that it cannot really solve by themselves, and they want an expert. So you are the expert that's going in. Obviously, you are supported by a team of domain specific experts, or maybe it could be data experts who would do a lot of the data analysis for you. uh, However, you should be that person to come up and think of a way. So that brings to like my third point, which is you have to be very, very structured in what you say. uh, and the fourth thing is, like I said, tools, Excel, PowerPoint, all of that you have to be able to present. Maybe the fifth point, which is again quite important, is I've said that we work with clients, and when you're working with clients, you're presenting to them. You need to have great communication skills. You have to be able to communicate what you found out effectively in a way that they understand, and in a way that it can be further taken back and implemented into their business. So communication and stakeholder management skills are very, very important for consulting. Uh, yeah, those are likely the top 4 or 5 skills that usually people look for in consultants.
Right. And based on your experience, we all know AI has taken over a majority part of our lives. Are there any tools that you recommend to aspiring consultants that they should use?
In terms of AI, I'm not too sure if there are any AI tools specifically for consulting as such. Uh, but what I've come across is Claude is quite a creative AI tool, which does really give you good ideas. You can obviously use, there is Chat GPT, which is there for sort of daily usage. Uh, what AI does help you with is the thought process. However, it's all down to what the client is actually facing in reality. So AI tools can act as a support for you, but you always have to then think about the client's current situation, uh, and how does that apply to in real life. In order to prepare for consulting roles, I would say there are tools like Case Prep, Prep Launch. These are great platforms where you can network with other aspiring consultants. You can read about cases. Then there are solutions to those cases as well. All you have to do is like create an account. It might even be provided by your university. You can likely ask them if they have any partnerships with these platforms. And there's a whole case bank that you can explore different sectors, different industries, different types of cases. So the more you get used to it, uh, the better it is going to be for you to like crack these case studies as you progress, and they'll not become uh, you start gaining experience around what different types of case studies are usually sort of asked in uh, these rounds of interview.
I think another tool, because you mentioned about visualization and how you can put across whatever you've analyzed in a way that the client understands. Something I came across a couple of months ago was Napkin AI, where you can put in the data and then they help you visualize it and they make it look nice and interesting for anyone to understand. So that could be a useful tool as well, isn't it?
Absolutely, I've used Napkin AI.
Yeah.
It's a nice tool. It's a nice tool to use. It you all you have to do is put in all of the information that you've got, and it'll come up with a few set of templates that you can then visualize all of that data. Is yeah, definitely a good show.
Awesome. So I've gone through your profile, obviously, and you've mentioned that you've applied like about 1,500 plus roles. Tell me about it. What was that journey like ever since you completed university and you wanted to apply for jobs?
Yeah, very interesting, because the first it was actually a surprise for me. Like when I started university, this goes back to September time, and I was just talking to somebody, talking to one of the career consultants, and somebody actually told me this while we were like applying. Somebody said that you're already 1 month late for applications, and I was like, this is day one. How could I be 1 month or 3 months late for to applying? And that's kind of that stuck with me really at that point of time. We had access to a lot of tools pre-university. So yeah, actually that was the time when I was speaking to somebody and they said, you're a few months already late, and then I was like, how is that even possible?
And this
Uh,
is the month you're starting university.
and this is the month that this is not even the month that I'm starting university. It's likely 1.5 months before I start university,
Wow.
because you had some pre-planned modules to go through
Yeah.
while we were uh, just about to start. So uh, I think that came across to me as like an early, alarm for me that this is going to be a challenge. Back in India, what used to happen is companies used to come to the campus to recruit, which is obviously not the case abroad anywhere. You have to reach out to companies. You have to then network. So yeah, I started. One of the good things that I did from that conversation was that I started applying early to roles. Uh, and I went through the process. There were different factors like COVID was there were hiring freezes, etc. That meant that opportunities were very limited. As an international student, you do have the restriction of a visa as well, which means that uh, opportunities are already limited. And if you take on top of that things like layoffs and uh, not any roles in the market, which makes things different and difficult. So yeah, I went through loads of applications, and I think every application or every rejection sort of taught me something, which is how I managed to land a role while I was still studying. Uh, so yeah, I think the two things, maybe one is like apply early as soon as you can, and second is it is going to be difficult. So like be prepared for like rejections. It is going to happen, but always take them as feedback. Always try and find out what is it that you could have done better, and every application then going forward, I would then improve on feedback that I get from my previous applications and my rejections. So yeah, it's been quite a journey.
Absolutely. It's not easy applying for jobs, even if it's like part time jobs or full time roles. Something I did get asked I think it was a year ago or something like that, where someone said that I have been applying for jobs and hundreds of jobs on a daily basis, and I get rejections, but I don't get any feedback from them. So, what do I really need to do? So, what is your advice to somebody who's been thoroughly applying, doing the right thing, but getting rejections and not getting any feedback? What should they do about this?
uh I think very valid. I would say maybe 85-90% of companies don't really have the capacity to provide feedback individually, and that's not a fault of theirs. Like I think it's quite commonly misunderstood that recruiters are like those people behind the screens as bullies who would just reject you or maybe accept you to the next stage. It's not like that. The amount of candidates that apply versus the recruiters are that ratio is very very skewed. So there are not enough people who can give you individual personalized feedback. So that's one thing that you should keep in mind, that you are not going to get feedback from everybody. What you should do to get feedback from people is either talk to alumni, people who are already in companies that you want to get into, maybe your dream roles. Talk to those people. Secondly, always start early and try and talk to career consultants at your university. Every university has a career support team that has years and years of experience. Try and get feedback from them. Third thing, what I would do is use LinkedIn as a platform to connect with recruiters, hiring managers, etc., and build that personal relationship with recruiters. Try and speak to them, and then if you build that relation, keep that conversation going. Always add value to those conversations. And I've had I've had recruiters who are obviously super busy, but if you keep that conversation going, if you actually provide value, you will likely get some or the other feedback, even if it's very informal. I've had people reach out to me with good and bad feedback both, which has likely helped me. Maybe the fourth thing that you could do here is maybe talk with peers who are also going through the same thing. Obviously, everybody is going through the job hunt journey, which is very stressful. So it's always good to speak to your peers who are likely getting called up for multiple rounds of interviews, or who are actually getting some good feedback from there, and like try and do a mock interview with them and see what is it that you are lacking at. I think, like you said, AI tools also usually do help. There are a lot of mock interviewing tools now that can help you, and it can give you specific speech insights. And how are you speaking? Is it natural? Are you sounding very robotic, or are you sounding somebody who has learned everything and he's just trying to come up with answers on the spot? So make use of all of those tools. Yeah, and pretty much everything else as well. So yeah, those are my few tips on how do you get feedback and how do you learn from those feedback.
I think something that I also came across was at an event that I attended, I think a couple of days ago, where they mentioned that from very early on, it's important to nurture those relationships and not show up on day 10 and say like and be like, I want a job, so give me a job. Sometimes, like you said, that LinkedIn can really help build those relationships, start those conversations early on. And whoever said it to you in, say, August or September that you're 1 month late, probably what international students or students in general can do is start early on having those conversations that, I'm joining this university, or have a post on LinkedIn up and talk about how they're going to be finishing at what stage, and these are the skills they will be building. And eventually I want to do this, so if you're hiring, and I'm up for it. And start kind of shortlisting people they want to reach out to, and start those conversations that I'll be graduating from this university in the year 2026 January, and I'll be up and about if you have a role coming up. And this is what they mentioned at the event as well, that don't come to me on the final day of something and say, I need that, because I don't know who you are. And I'd rather prefer someone I've been having that conversation with and is asking the same thing. So I think nurturing those relationships is also very important, isn't it?
Absolutely, I think what does really help you here is if you nurture the relationship by being very genuine. You need to have a very specific ask. If you're reaching out to somebody, let's say on LinkedIn, be very specific. uh, Everybody is very busy, right? People don't have time to respond. People don't have time to read long messages. People don't have the capacity to respond to every message that they get. So if you are reaching out to somebody who's getting, tens of messages from other people, how do you make sure that you stand out? And once that happens, how do you take that forward? I think the number one key reason is like be very genuine, be very specific about what you want, and start when we say start early. I think the best time to do it was likely yesterday, but the next best time is today. So maybe start doing it slowly, see what works. Not every message that you draft, not your first message is never going to work with everybody. You will obviously learn to how people are, like how likely are people to respond to this sort of message or this sort of message. So that's what you would likely figure out as you go. But try and make that additional effort, try and go to their profile, see what is it that's very unique about them, mention it in the message. That's more likely to make them respond to you.
Right, an absolutely incredible tip over there when you said know your ask. I'll mention an incident that
Mhm.
happened to me again, where I'm so excited about this conversation, and the person next door asks me, but what are you asking for? What is your ask? And I was like, but I know what I'm asking for, but I don't have that crisp answer to say this is what I'm asking for. And I think it just resonated with me right now to always know what your ask is, even if you're texting to, just initiate that conversation, know what you're asking for, which is great. Tell us a bit about your current role. What are you doing in that role? How did you land that job? Is it a sponsored role? And how did you know that this was the role you wanted to apply for?
Sure. So my background is within the textile sector. I worked in consulting for three years. Within consulting, I was within retail consulting. Then I went to procurement consulting, and I now work for a procurement department it's in-house procurement for a clothing firm. Uh, so my experiences have been within retail and procurement, and that's the combination of what I do. So my current firm is a retail clothing company, and my role revolves around buying product, analyzing trends in the market, how well it has sold in the previous seasons, in the previous years, and then allocating it to certain stores. How much should I buy those products, etc. So it's quite data driven. It's also driven by a lot of what's trending right now. So because it is clothing, there are trends that come very fast and then they go away as faster. So there's a lot of research that goes into it, and that is what we base our projections and our estimations on. There's a finance angle to it as well, where we have a certain budget to work with, and we try and allocate the budget towards what we think is going to sell and bring the most amount of sales or revenue or profit to the company. Uh, so that is what my current role revolves around, specific in-house procurement. Yes.
And is it a sponsored role?
Yes, it is a sponsored role. I have been sponsored. Yeah, it is my both. This is my third sponsored role. So yes, this is,
Really?
yeah.
Wow, you have to tell us more
Mm-hmm.
about that. How did you do that?
Uh, yeah. So initially, like I said, my experiences within India sort of really helped me, first of all, to kind of bring something to the table to get that foot into the door in the UK. And like I've said, I've applied to a lot of roles, gained a lot of experience through like interviewing itself, and had several final round rejections as well. Uh, I think what really must have helped me initially was that I agreed to do an internship earlier and then convert that to full-time role. Uh, that sort of gave me a grounding in the UK to start building my UK experience. So I would say to anybody who's looking for a job right now, apply to internships, apply to full-time roles. If you are a student right now, if you're very early on, try and focus and uh, give some importance to internships as well, because you never know when, and if you perform really well in those internships, they might get converted to a full-time role once you finish it. What also is a second thing to consider here when you're considering internships is that most companies wouldn't likely let you go, because now, as part of, even though you were an intern, you've come into the company, you've understood the company culture, and you've understood how systems work, how things work around. They are more inclined to retain you than to let you go somewhere else. Uh, and obviously, I think given a chance, we all would likely perform it to our level best. So that goes without saying that you have to be the hardest worker. You have to be very hardworking. You have to try and make the most use of whatever time you've got on your internship. So my journey came through an internship which got converted to a full-time role. uh, I think for me and for a lot of people that I currently help with, I think it's landing that first role that's the most difficult one. Once you land that first role and once you start working in the UK, I think gradually, according to me at least, that the second and the third roles become a bit easier to land. But getting that first role is likely the most difficult part of it. So yeah, that is how yeah, I got offered that sponsored role initially, and then moved to my second firm, which was specifically, it was consulting again, but it was specifically procurement consulting. Uh, and because I had some retail experience, I had some retail clients while working in procurement consulting as well. And then my third role, I wanted to come back to industry. So there are two sides. One is where you work in industry versus where you work in consulting, where you work for multiple industries. Because I had a background in textiles, I always had a liking towards it, and because now I had some retail experience also and some procurement experience, I wanted to do it for a retail firm in the procurement area. So that was my third one.
And did you do something
Hmm.
differently? Like, a lot of people ask me how to apply for sponsored roles, and I also tell them to list down the companies that have the license and then reach out to them. Did you do something of that sort, or did you just apply and eventually the company said, we want to hire you full time?
In terms of my application process, I knew that there was a license list. It was until much later that I found out that there is a license register of licensed sponsors on the gov.uk website. However, I think in the current market, I would say one of my top advices is don't look for sponsorship immediately. But if it's there, amazing, great, take it, take that chance, and get sponsored. But I think what I would really recommend is build UK experience and build on yours. I think if you have the necessary skill set and you have the necessary experience, sponsorship is likely to follow. Uh, do not chase sponsorship. That's not a really good strategy to go for if you are not having a lot of experience already. If you have a lot of experience and you have had some UK experience as well, then yes. And if you are on a time pressure, then yes, go for only roles that offer sponsorship or are likely to offer you sponsorship sometime down the road. But if it's your first role in the UK, I would say do not chase sponsorship. Like that will easily follow if you have the right skills.
I've got two questions there. You said don't chase sponsorship immediately. So, what's the right time to actually think about sponsorship during your graduate route, according to you?
When you should begin pretty much just around that 6 month mark, when you've likely passed your probation, you've understood your role in detail, you understand how you can grow into that firm and what can you contribute. Because usually the first 1 or 2 months usually is sort of onboarding, and you're trying to understand what the company is doing, what your role is, and you haven't added any value yet. By the time you are able to contribute and like prove your worth to the company, usually takes around at least 4 to 5 months. And I would say a 6 month mark is a good enough target to have enough evidence to show that you've got the right skills and the right level of exposure, and this is what you can contribute in the next 2 years, 3 years down the line, and you have a good enough plan. You have some feedback already from maybe your manager or maybe your peers from the last 6 months and how you've performed, etc.
The second question that I had was, you mentioned that if you have the right skills and qualifications, what kind of skills are being sponsored? Are there any specific skills that there's more demand for and others should just not think about it, do you reckon? Or everyone can apply for sponsored roles because XYZ are the skills they should have?
I'm not exactly aware of whether there being a certain skill that is better or there is a certain sector that gets sponsored more or less. I think all sectors have the possibility to get sponsored. There are obviously restrictions on the type of roles that you can get sponsored for. So there is a certain code, which is called as a SOC code, SOC, and that's a classification of all the role names, actual role types that you can get sponsored for in the UK. And if you go to the gov.uk website, or even if you Google for that, you will likely find out that it covers all industries, all sectors, and all sorts of roles that require you to have a amount of uh, certain amount of skills that are necessary for you to get sponsored. So no, there is not a specific industry or a specific role that does get sponsored more often than not. uh, but yes, I think if you go through that SOC code list, you will be able to find out what sort of roles can you be eligible for, and maybe then prepare towards those role types.
Right. A lot of international students have this understanding that a degree will be enough for them to land a job. Do you agree with this? And if not, then what do they need to do during university that can help them land a job faster or make the process easier for them?
First of all, you have to be very uh, you need to have good communication skills. You have to be able to reach out to people. You should be able to present yourself in a way that somebody understands the level of experience that you bring and the type of skills that you have. So it's all, I think it does boil down to how you present yourself as a candidate, and how do you fit that particular role, or how do you fit that particular how can you be a great addition to the company. You can do that through multiple ways. So you can have projects that can showcase that, you can have work experience that can showcase that, you should be doing uh, volunteering uh, volunteering work if you can find. So anything and everything that can complement your story, especially it's all about the story, that how did you where did you come from, what did you learn, what did you study, and wherever you worked, what did you gain out of it, and what was essentially your impact in it.
So, with the UK government proposing all the proposals that they have on the white paper, and I'm sure you must have come across that as well. Do you think that's going to change a lot of things for graduates applying for jobs, or even on the employer side? Do you think employers are going to be more reluctant to hire people or international talent?
Yes, I think it's going to have effects on the hiring processes, and how open UK employers are going to be about sponsoring candidates, or maybe even taking in candidates who will require sponsorship in the future. The white paper has set down a lot of things that haven't been obviously implemented yet, and they will go through a formal consultation process. But what, according to me, and my personal opinion, is that UK employers are already a bit uh, they are already a bit wary of things such as, immigration policies, etc., which are always changing. So they've always had to keep up with so many different things, which is not really easy to do as a business. uh, so yes, those changing terms again means that they have to go through all of it, understand what it actually means, and then make a decision about it. Uh, it does impact businesses in the way that it's going to cost them higher to sponsor international talent if they are implemented. And this is still an if, uh, which might mean that they will be less open to hiring people who require sponsorship in the future. Also, a lot of these costs can be passed down to candidates. So this would also mean that candidates themselves would then have to pay a lot of additional costs in addition to what is there currently, in terms of the number of years that it is going to take place. So if they increase a certain time to get into a permanent to become a permanent resident, if that increases from the current 5 to the proposed 10 years, that would mean 5 years worth of additional costs in terms of NHS, fees for the applicant, and then uh, IHS fees and a lot of the other uh, skilled worker related visa costs for the employer. So, yes, there's going to be an impact for both the employer and the employee. And there may be a chance that certain small companies may not be able to afford. Maybe the big companies can likely afford things, even with changing costs, but then it will hamper certain small and medium-sized firms to get tap into the international pool of talent that way.
Do you get a lot of questions asked about the immigration white paper and how it's going to affect them? Are students really stressed about this stuff?
I did have a lot of questions when it first came out. So we did, I did sort of a small uh, update on LinkedIn as well. But then we also discussed it within my community of students, and we went through a lot of the points that were being discussed. I think the key thing here is to realize that this has not been implemented yet, and it's going to take a while before it gets implemented, which means that your current focus should not be on them. Like, do not worry about things like changing policies, etc. Your focus should be on building your skills and building your experience so that no matter what policies change, the employer or the company feels that you are worthy enough of being sponsored. If you want to stay back in the UK, or if you want to land a role, then you are worthy enough of being given that opportunity to work for that particular firm. So yeah, that should be that was my message to everybody to focus on what you currently have. And essentially at the end of the day, it's the same sort of rules that are going to apply to everybody. It's not going to be individually you that it's going to be applying to. Everybody in that uh, space is going to be affected equally, and if they are, uh, there's always going to be a lot of consultation to take into consideration uh, of how you might be able to, even though even if you are in the UK, there might be a way to still be eligible for the old rules versus the new rules. So there's always going to be some transitional arrangements in place for existing students, graduates, skilled worker visa holders in the UK.
Right. Coming to your community, ICN, International Careers Network, tell us a bit about that and what do you do? And most importantly, what inspired you to start this?
Sure. So International Careers Network is a small community platform, I would say. It's more like a Facebook, but for people wanting to land roles in the UK. Uh, Initially, I used to get a lot of messages from students and grads about how did you, like student like aspiring students, how did you get into this particular university. It slowly turned into how did you get into this particular role, into this particular company. And I've been helping out students for the last 4+ years now already, but it has been very informal. uh, that is why I decided to do this sort of a platform where I could post about all of my resources that I have used. So it's a very big resource library on the platform that you can access. And students on recent grads, whoever is looking for roles, you can join the community, access the resources. We also have another set of things that you can benefit from. Number one being workshops. So I regularly call in uh, people from my network, mostly international students who have landed roles in the UK, come and give talks on their journey and what helped them. So you can attend all of those workshop sessions by international students, who once who were international students and have now landed roles. We do that over as many sectors as possible. So we've had speakers in sustainability, data, product management, marketing. etc. So I've tried and covered as many industries and sectors as possible, so you could benefit from that. And thirdly, I think what you can then benefit from is one-to-ones with me. So if you need personal help or support with me, I offer that to anybody who joins the community, irrespective of whatever tier of membership you are on. So there are two membership types. Irrespective of that, you still get one-on-one support from me as part of the platform, because I think that's what's lacking the most. Like, you always have a lot of additional support in terms of getting resources and getting to attend these webinars, etc. But what you might be lacking is that level of one-on-one uh, personal personalized help that I've been doing. And yeah, that could be another reason why you may want to join.
That's absolutely remarkable because I feel we need more and more people to talk about their journeys and talk about how they've come from where they've come and reached this point, because so many students, and we've been on that journey ourselves, and we kind of navigated it somehow, but learned so much on the way. And I think that's something that's inspired me to always speak to people who are kind of struggling to navigate life in the UK. And when I went through your profile as well, I was like, that's somebody out there helping other individuals and professionals and graduates find a way and provide them with answers to the questions that they might have had but not sure where to go and who to go to. So that's absolutely great. I will mention all the details about ICN in the caption below so that they can reach out to you, book a one-to-one consultation, and just pick your brains on everything that they have questions about. If you had to mention just one mindset shift that international students specifically need to have in order to like thrive in the UK, what would that be?
I think the mindset shift that I would say is, and that has likely helped me, is be very persistent. Like, and be very resilient. The sooner you understand that things like, there's always going to be more rejections, and there are going to be you know accepts coming to you in terms of getting to further rounds or offers, etc. So the more quickly you are resilient to that, like, rejections is part and parcel of the game that we are playing, especially in the current market, when there is so much competition, right? It's likely not even an issue with like the skills that you've got. Maybe somebody has presented it better. Maybe somebody has a nice story that they uh, tell. And so what that comes down to is that don't take it really personally. Like, don't take rejections very personally. So be resilient with that. And the second thing, when you are resilient, is like persist. Like, this is going to be an uphill task for like most people. I know a lot of candidates to land roles. They apply to a few roles and then they land a role, which is great. I think that's not the case with the majority of people who apply. They have had to apply to tens of hundreds of roles before they land that one role that they finally get accepted to, or land an offer from. So persist. It is coming, and if you do it the right way, learn along the way, and yeah, don't take rejections personally. Move on as quickly as you can to the next thing. There is enough opportunity out there. There are enough roles that you can apply to in any sector. I know people who have created roles for candidates which never existed, only because they built that relationship. And whenever like that role was supposed to like come out, that's the first person who came to their mind, and they asked them, and they did an they did, the role never came out onto the public job board at all, and it got internally filled, uh, because somebody had reached out earlier in the past and kept that relationship going. So do that, and yeah, be very, very persistent.
Yeah, that's two beautiful tips there. Be persistent and don't take it personally. I remember a friend who took these rejections really, really personally. She was really great at what she did, and she worked in this company for a really long time, and they eventually told her that we can't sponsor because we don't have the resources to, despite having the license and her doing a majority part of that role. But when I saw her taking all of that personally, it was important to remind her that your worth is, you're still worthy, and do not define your skills and your qualifications and your experience based on how the employer is replying back to you. And I feel that's very important, because a lot of graduates and professionals start stressing about these things, become anxious, become depressed. Thanks to the incredible weather in the UK, it just adds on to everything that you're feeling and thinking. So I believe one takeaway from this podcast, if anyone has, and if everyone has watched it till the end, has to be that don't take these rejections personally, because these can really mess with you mentally and emotionally, and it just ends up you not putting your 100% afterwards. But this brings us to the end of the podcast. Thank
Absolutely.
you so much for this conversation. I'm sure everyone who's finding jobs, looking for jobs, applying for jobs will find this super, super useful, because we know there's so many people applying for jobs every day, thousands of jobs, getting rejections, getting to the interview stage and not making it there. And I'm definite that this is going to be a very, very useful podcast for them. So thank you so much, Hardil, for being on this and sharing your tips, insights, and about your community to everyone. Any final words?
No, thank you so much for inviting me to this podcast. Been really nice to speak to you, and hopefully everybody who's hearing this. I think my final tip is just going to be around, like I said earlier as well. Uh, it's the system isn't like broken. It's just gotten more difficult at this point. So don't lose hope. I'm rooting for you as well. And you are very close. You and just stay as persistent as you were when you first started job hunting, and it's good. You will land your dream role very soon. So all the best to everybody.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Hardil.
Thank you so much.